it's a pleasure to having you, Mr. Robert. It's man, I could tell you this. I read your book, and I was amazed about the things that I read in the book. It it's just it blew my mind when I read this book.
I've never heard that before. No, I like knowing that. I like knowing that it makes that kind of impact on people.
Right, it does. I actually have it here with me right now. It's just such a great book, and I'm gonna record this. So if you don't mind, if I could share this so people could buy your book. If anybody,
I got no problem with that.
yeah. So if anybody's interested on getting Mr. Roberts' book, go ahead and purchase it. It's gonna change your guys' life completely, 100%. So man, just like I said, it's a pleasure having you here in my channel. It's called Growth Channel.
Growth Channel. Okay.
Yes. So man, what influence can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Like, what's your background?
All right, my background. That might take a little while. I just had my 68th birthday last week, so there's a lot of water under the bridge. More briefly, a lot of people want to know what led to me writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, and what made me an expert on nice guys. Well, I am a recovering nice guy. I was one of those guys I thought if I just do everything right, make everybody happy, be different from my father, be different than all the bad men out there, then I'll be liked and loved and get my needs met. And I I grew up in a fundamental Christian church. I have 2 degrees in religion. I was a minister for 8 years, long time ago. I'm no longer religious, but I was a couple years into my second marriage when my wife said, "You're not a nice guy. Everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you can be a real asshole." She goes, "I'm not going to put up with it anymore. You need to go get help." So I thought, well, you're the one who's never happy. You're the one who never wants to have sex anymore. You're the one that, is in a bad mood all the time. Okay, I'll go to therapy. So I actually I went to therapy. I went to a 12-step group trying to figure out why me being a nice guy didn't make my wife happier, right? And luckily I landed in some pretty good places and began to understand pretty quickly this roadmap that I had, this paradigm that I had. Well, if I'm just a good guy, people will like me and love me, and I'll get my needs met. Didn't work. And it was based on a fallacy that, oh, look, I'm so good. The truth was I could be an asshole. Truth was I could often be pretty dishonest. Truth was I could be controlling. Truth was I could be passive aggressive. But because I thought I was a nice guy, I pushed all those things down where I thought, nice guys aren't controlling or passive aggressive or dishonest, but I was. And so I started working on those issues in 12-step group, a men's group, therapy, and began understanding how I developed those belief systems, how they didn't serve me, how to be more honest, how to make my needs a priority, how to set boundaries, how to ask for what I want, and just started learning how to be a more mature man. And along the way, I was a marriage therapist, marriage and family. And so guys were coming to me, sometimes by themselves, sometimes with their wife or girlfriend, and they were saying, "I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. How come she's never happy? How come, when's it going to be my turn? How come she never wants to have sex anymore?" I thought I could finish their sentences for them. So I started No More Mr. Nice Guy group. I think we met every other Wednesday. And I started writing what I was learning about what I came to call nice guy syndrome. And I kept giving these guys chapters. And after a while, they and their wives and girlfriends kept saying, "Robert, you should write a book. You should go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. People need this." And so it took me about 6-7 years to write No More Mr. Nice Guy, about 3 years to get it published. A lot of publishing companies said, "Oh, we like your book, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book." But that's not true. You buy self-help books, right? I buy self-help books. Amazon really helps that. And so the book came out just 20 years ago, coming up on 21 years ago. Its sales go up every year. So more and more men are finding it. And it's changing more and more lives. And a lot of guys have that exact reaction. "Dr. Glover, you've been following me around. How do you know me so well? How'd you hit so close to home with all the stuff I struggle with?" And because number one, I'm a recovering nice guy. And number two, I've spent the last 30 years working with nice guys. So I've come to know us pretty well. So now I live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I'm still writing. I'm still working with nice guys. I had a writer's retreat at my house this weekend. I'm married again, raising kids, having a good life.
Right, right. It's pretty interesting. You're actually in my roots, and I'm actually born in Mexico. I was
¿Dónde
born
eres?
in Guanajuato, Mexico.
Guanajuato, me encanta Guanajuato. Yo fui para mi luna miel. My wife and I went there on our honeymoon
Really?
7 years ago. I love Guanajuato. I love all
Yeah.
the tunnels under the ground and mummy museums and the torture museums and yeah, great. I love
It's
that city.
place. It's a great tourist place. I love it out there too. I'm specifically from a little town called El Joconoscle. It's a tiny town, but there's a lot of people who are entrepreneurs in there. You know,
Really?
people from little towns come to our town because we're the ones that have food. We have a lot of the dancing. It's fun out there. Maybe when I'm out there, I could invite you. We build a good relationship because I'm writing a book myself right now.
Okay.
But down the road, I could invite you down to one of my masterminds over there in Mexico. I have several houses over there, so I would like to keep in touch with you.
Let,
But
let's let's do that because yeah, I love Leon. I love Guanajuato, San Miguel. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's not necessarily my favorite place, but it is a beautiful. I saw that beautiful area through there.
right, right. Now, brother, when it comes to No More Mr. Nice Guy, how can someone become just that, a No More Mr. Nice Guy?
How do you break free from the nice guy syndrome?
Correct.
Okay. Well, of course, that's what the book's about, so yeah, go buy the book. And here's how I started. Number one, I went and got help. I went and talked to other people. One thing, and I say this in the book, I've been saying it to men for 30 years. Don't try to do this alone. If you're in a relationship and it's not working well, don't just try harder doing the same thing you've been doing that hasn't worked. If you can't talk to women, or if you end up in the friend zone, or women say, "Oh, you'll make some lucky woman, so happy someday," but they don't want to date you, right? Going and trying to figure this out on your own doesn't work. So, my number one point for breaking free from nice guy syndrome is go connect with men. Go get into a men's group. Go get a coach. Go to a workshop. Go to a 12-step group. Because what happens when men get connected with other men? The first thing you figure out is you're not alone. That, everybody else in this room of 8, 10, 12, 100 people have the same stuff going on that you do. They procrastinate like you do. They have shame like you do. They have sexual issues like you do. They spend too much time looking at porn like you do. They don't live up to their full potential in work and career like you. They struggle with a wife that's not happy and doesn't want to have sex, or they don't know how to talk to women. What you find out, you're not alone. You're not terminally unique. That is such a relief because most guys, we keep all of our internal demons inside our own head. I'm not good looking enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not achieving enough, or I could be doing better, or if people really knew me, this fear of being found out, imposter syndrome, all that, we keep it inside our own heads. And then if you go get around, a group of other men who are being real and vulnerable, you go, well, I'm like them, and I don't think anything wrong with them. Maybe I'm okay too. And so you learn to be vulnerable, learn to reveal yourself, learn to connect with other men. That's such a big part. A lot of nice guys are more comfortable connecting with women. We get a lot of validation from women. We get strokes. We sit and talk and help them fix their problems, and they think we're a great guy. But and a lot of guys, because we weren't connected with our fathers, maybe we don't trust men, maybe we don't feel safe with men. But to really break free from nice guy syndrome, we got to go connect with men. Like I said 5 guys in my house this weekend for a writer's retreat. The 5th year I've done it. Um, I'm on Zoom every day talking to my friends. And 8 years ago, I had maybe 2 friends. Now I got like 25 guys I can call up anytime, or guys that call me up. So I've really worked on connecting with men. Another thing you have to learn to do is be honest. As I mentioned, I thought I was a nice guy, but I never really completely told the whole truth if I thought it might upset somebody. I'd leave this out, or shape it that way, or kind of phrase it like this, or put it like that. And I wouldn't ask for what I want. I wouldn't state my true opinion. And so I had to learn to start telling the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And that's so liberating because as long as you're walking around not telling the whole truth, you're walking around in fear because you're afraid other people can hurt you. And if you're walking around in fear, you're a child. So growing up, breaking free from nice guy syndrome involves learning to tell the truth. We have to find safe places to release what's called toxic shame, that core belief deep inside that I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. I'm not lovable. Now, we may go out and find a lot of, some nice guys, what I call the I'm so bad nice guys, they can tell you, oh, here's all my flaws. Here's everything that's wrong with me. The I'm so good nice guy, which is me, we press everything down so dark, so deep. Oh, I'm a good guy. I don't do anything wrong, but that shame is still down there. That's why we're trying so hard to be nice guys. So we got to go find safe people and start revealing the things about ourselves that we don't want to reveal. Another thing we got to do is we got to start taking chances. We got to learn to live at our edge, get out of our comfort zone, do the things that scare us because we got to find that passion, that purpose in order to feel fulfilled in life. Because a lot of nice guys come to me. I usually say most nice guys that show up at my door have one of what I call the 3 Ps, sometimes all three. They're procrastinating, they're lacking purpose, and often they're addicted to porn. Those are such common nice guy patterns: procrastination, lack of purpose, and obsession, compulsion with porn. So to really live our best lives, we got to get out of our comfort zones. And usually we need support from other men to help us do that. So there's just a bunch of things that I found work for me that I see work for other guys as well. Get connected with other people, connect with men, tell the truth, release your toxic shame, get out of your comfort zone, live at your edge. And there's more, but that's a good start right there.
That's interesting that you say that, Dr. Grover, Robert, because I used to isolate myself. And I trained a little bit for MMA, and I used to just, as I growing up, I was never an isolator. I would never push myself aside, and I never thought I would seek attention from women, right? But as I got older, I started doing it for quite a
Yeah.
while. And when I read your book, I started getting back my manlyhood by hanging around with men. I'm
Yeah.
actually right now I just finished up a group. There was about 25 men, and we meet up in a church group. So we
Okay.
talk about the Bible, we study the Bible and stuff. And I started doing that because your book influenced me to do that. I'm like, hey, I need to
Love it.
start again. So it was a big impact for me, honestly. Your book was a great help for me, and it's still helping me right now. And I read a lot of books. I read 5 to 7 books a month. It's just I'm hungry to learning more and more and more. I want to continue to do. You're the first person that has gave me the opportunity to interview them from writing a book. Now I'm gonna start doing that with people who have wrote books. I'm
Do
gonna
it.
start videos like this. So
Do
yeah,
it.
that's what growth channel is all about. Just helping people become the best version of themselves. Now, there's a specific question I want to ask you when it comes to where does the Mr. Nice Guy syndrome come from? What's the root of that? Where does it come? Is it something that people are born with, or is it something that they develop? Is it a skill, or what is it? What is exactly the root of it?
It's probably all of the above. A lot of guys I work with have a natural easygoing temperament. I do. I know my mother, often used to say, she'd tell my girlfriends or the women I was involved, oh, Bobby never did like conflict. And yeah, I guess that was her way of saying, don't be mean to my son. Um, but I'm thinking, who the fuck likes conflict? Yeah, why is that? Why is that like, somebody would say, oh, he never did like conflict. But I seem to be attracted to women who do like conflict. My wife's Mexican. She loves to fight. That's kind of
Oh
a
man,
Mexicans love to fight. When they get bored, they start fights. Um,
yeah.
so I always tell her, you love to fight. No, I don't. Yeah, yeah, you really do. You fight all the time. Um, but for me, that's my temperament. I don't like conflict. I don't like people mad at me. I don't like to hurt people's feelings. That's just me, right? That's never going to change. And other things that in my case contributed. My father could be angry and critical and moody. So I didn't want to be like him. My mother raised me to be different from my father. So I would listen to her talk about her problems and try to make her life better. So is it any surprise I grew up and I would be attracted to women that I could help fix their problems? I could, help their lives be better, and then they'll like me and they'll love me. So it can be natural temperament, and it can be just how we're trained in our families. As I said, I grew up in a very fundamental Christian church. And, basically the messages I got was put yourself last, you're not important, put everybody else first, which is kind of funny because Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself, which means that self-love is the standard of all love, and you can't love your neighbor more than you love yourself. And so it kind of doesn't make sense that I learned growing up, put yourself last. Well, no, you kind of got to put yourself first and then love your neighbor in the same way. But anyway, whole nother subject.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that is a whole nother subject, right? When it comes to like the no more Mr. Nice Guy, what is considered? So I guess my next question is, what is considered a healthy relationship, in general? Because that's your main focus, right? Like you focus on relationships and helping men for the most part, right?
a,
So
a
what is
lot, a lot of that is, yeah,
so biblically, or because I know you mentioned that you grew up Christian,
right.
but you're no longer religious. I never had a religion myself. I I believe in God, I
Yeah.
do, but I don't believe in religion. Even the Bible says it that we shouldn't believe in religion. But when it comes to that, what is considered a healthy relationship for someone?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know that I can say, well, here's the answer to it. But yeah, I got my PhD in marriage and family therapy when I was 29 years old, and I've been married 3 times. And after I divorced the second time, I was single in my late 40s and 50s. I had to learn how to date. So actually, that taught me a lot, about how you date is the kind of relationship you're going to end up with. So let me just share something from my dating years then. I remember
Right.
when over time, as I got better at dating, started meeting some, really good women, and after a few dates, thinking, all right, let's keep going. Let's see where this goes. And I've told this to probably 3, 4, 5 women. I'd say, listen, if we keep seeing each other, here's what you can expect from me. I say, I will be conscious. I'll pay attention. I'll pay attention to you, to me, the relationship. I'll be aware of what's going on. I will be honest. Everything I'll tell you will be the truth, the whole truth. I'll be transparent. You'll know what I think, what I feel, what I want, where I'm going, what I expect from you, what's on my mind. And I said, I will set the tone and take the lead. Now, I'm not going to be controlling, but I'm going to live my life on my terms and invite you to come be a part of that if you want, kind of like leading on the dance floor. I'm going to lead. If you like dancing with me, let's dance together. If you don't like the way I lead, there's other guys you can go dance with. So I'm going to lead in that. And I said, I won't come say, what do you want to do tonight? Or what do you want to eat for dinner? I'll say, hey, how about we do this? Or, here, I got an idea. I'll lead. But mostly I'll lead, I'll set the emotional tone of the relationship, you know. And so I would say that to women, and they kind of get that look and they go, well, all right, what do you expect from me? And I said, well, I got my life pretty well handled. I got a good job. I got friends. I love what I do. I got a full life. And I tell them, just treat me well and make my world beautiful. And then when the women would kind of look like this, kind of like they're thinking, how could I treat him well and make his world beautiful? All of a sudden, they're activated and into like, yeah, I like. There's a man setting the tone. He's going to be honest with me. He's going to be transparent with me. He's going to be paying attention. He's going to lead. It won't, he won't dump everything on me and expect me to, figure everything out. And then they're thinking, how can I treat him well and make his world beautiful? And every woman I had that conversation with said to me, you should write another book because men need to know what you're doing. Men need to know about this. So I think that's a pretty healthy starting point. Like if you're going to date that way, how we date determines the kind of relationship we end up with. So if you start out dating as a man, setting the tone, being conscious, being honest, being transparent, letting the woman bless your life as you bless her life, I think that's going to work out pretty well. And my wife and I just celebrated our 7th anniversary just last
Yeah.
month. And and that's, she's a strong woman, strong Mexican woman, grew up 8 out of 10 kids in Guadalajara, Mexico, learned how to fight at an early age just to survive. She got all kinds of abuse and trauma in her life. She's smart, she's funny, she's open-hearted, she's generous, she's strong. She goes to the gym 2 hours a day. She's a gym rat. She did Muay Thai. She did kickboxing. I don't pick fights with her. She's assertive too. Southpaw. You got to watch out for them. But she's the most loving, open-hearted, and she loves it when I lead. I remember when we were early dating. She goes, "I love it when you tell me no." She goes, we'll walk into a restaurant and they'll hand us a couple menus. And here in Mexico, they always say to her, "Does he want a menu in English?" She says, "No, he's in Mexico. He can read Spanish. He can speak Spanish." And then they hand her a menu and she's like,
Español.
"Sí, hablo español. Mi esposo no habla inglés. Yo aprendí español." Yeah, I live in Mexico. My wife
Right.
doesn't speak English. My kids don't speak English. So I,
Mm,
I learned Spanish and I'm glad. So they'll hand her a menu and she goes, "No, he's my boss. He'll order for me." And I always joke, yeah, I get to be the boss when she says I can. So my wife loves it that I'm strong. I'm making a difference in the world. Like I said, 5 guys here this week, writers that have created stuff. I put books out there. She loves it when I do workshops in the home. She's the men that come here to study with me and work with me. And she feels so much respect for me and values what I do. And I treat her kids well. She has a good life. Um, and she loves to treat me well and make my world beautiful. She'll say on birthday, Christmas, anniversaries, "What can I get for you? What can I buy?" I said, "Nothing. I don't need anything." And I said, you go to the gym, you take care of yourself, you cook me great meals, you always dress well, you always look beautiful, you always look sexy. That's my gift. That's all I need. That's all I want. And I can't say that's what everybody should do, but it works pretty well for us.
that's what works for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's a really interesting topic that you touched because I wanted to ask you this question, and it's a very important question. Now, does a man not having enough money also can send them to develop the Mr. Nice Guy syndrome, or
Well, that's maybe a chicken and egg question because I work a lot with nice guys, and nice guys. I mean, there's exceptions to this rule, but a lot of nice guys are underachievers. They underprice themselves, they undervalue themselves, they get caught up in. I've got a whole class I've been teaching for 20 years called "Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, They Rot in Middle Management." And I say that nice guys are often good at being good, but not great at being great. We're not comfortable hitting it out of the park. We're not comfortable being in the limelight, standing out. We're not comfortable charging a lot for what we do. We're saying, "Give me a raise or I'm leaving." We get caught up in codependent relationships. We're trying to fix things for people. We don't want to upset anybody. So, and I've struggled with this. Most nice guys struggle with really living up to their potential financially. I decided 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, this is a piece that I've never brought my A game to. And in the last 6 years, I bought a house and paid for it in 3 years, buy all my vehicles with cash, got all the way out of debt, put $250,000 in a 401k account. And because I got focused and paying attention to where I wasn't living up to my full potential financially, where I was like, you know, uh, not using my money well. So I found for a lot of nice guys, it makes us uncomfortable to really stand out and hit it out of the park. Now, I have a number of clients I work with that do make decent money. But I remember one of my coaches was one of my certified No More Mr. Nice Guy coaches said recently, "Yeah, I'm gonna launch a coaching business, with nice guys, and I want to be making like I don't know, like 7 figures or something like that." I said, "Good luck." You're not going to get rich working off nice guys because most nice guys, again, aren't they're not performing at the highest level themselves either.
they're not that hungry?
It can come down to hungry, but you know what? I also think it can. Well, maybe nobody's ever taught them, right? You have to learn this stuff. But I think for a lot of them is we're more comfortable helping other people shine than helping ourselves shine. oh, I'll support you as you go to school, or I'll make this better in your life. But for us to really stand out and shine really makes a lot of nice guys uncomfortable. It's just they don't like being in the limelight. Like I'll work with guys that want to be entrepreneurs, and I'll go, I'll tell them not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. In fact, I don't think most people are. You're going to live with anxiety every day for the rest of your life if you're an entrepreneur. You're going to be losing one client away from going, holy, what the fuck, but where'd it go? Or I gotta sell this program, or I'm not gonna be able to pay my bills this month. That's part of being an entrepreneur. You got to be able to deal with that kind of uncertainty, that anxiety. But the main thing is, I tell them, you got to be willing to fucking hustle. You got to be willing to sell yourself. You got to believe in yourself. And just like, well, guys say, well, I can pitch somebody else. I can go sell somebody else. And I go, yeah, you got to sell you if you're an entrepreneur. And that for most nice guys, that's really hard. And it's something I had to learn. And now I love the hustle. I love marketing. I love the psychology of it. I love doing interviews. I just, it's all hustle. Yeah, I'm wearing a T-shirt hustling. My new men's program. Right? It's all hustle. And if you don't love the hustle, yeah, just work for the man. You can get a good job. There's good jobs out there, but don't make yourself miserable trying to be an entrepreneur if you don't love hustling.
I agree with you that 100%. See, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur myself too.
I
So
know that.
yeah, I do insurance, real estate, solar. I'm working on a clothing line and a marketing company. So you have to be hungry for this crap, you know, because you're either one person away from an explosion, or
Yeah.
one person away from being broke.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you have to get comfortable living that way. Yeah, that's got to be okay. I just invested $100,000 in my company. Now all of a sudden, oh, I got credit card debt because that's how I built the company. And it's like, oh my goodness, now I'm not used to. I've been out of debt for a while now. It's, okay, this is what it takes. I went into debt for something I believed in. It's going in the right direction. It's going to be big. It will more than pay off whatever I put into it. So, I had to believe in it. And but it's still a risk. And and like I said, I'm out hustling. You gotta hustle.
You had to have the heart. See, I was, like I mentioned earlier, I was born in Mexico. So I came to I live in the United States. I have my house in Guanajuato,
Mm.
but I'm in Bakersfield, Arvin,
Okay.
California.
Yeah.
Bakersfield. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area, but I came to this country to make an impact in my life. My grandpa
Right.
brought me to the country, and I didn't come to waste my time, man. I came here to do something big and change my life, my family's life, and everyone around me. I want to be able to bless everyone, and that's why I do this stuff because I have faith. I invest into my business. I made a decision to reach out to you. Most people who are entrepreneurs,
Mm.
they're like, no, 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 no. I don't want to reach out
Yeah.
because they fear hold them back from connecting with people like yourself. It's fear that holds a lot of people back. Now, back to your book, because this book, like I said, is just so great. Now, what can someone be out of this Mr. Nice Guy syndrome and then go back to it
That
after?
that's a good question. Yeah, I'll tell you a personal story. I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, like I said, 25 years ago. It took about 6, 7 years to write, 3 years to get it published. It came out in print early 2003. And and I knew when I published it, I knew I still had work to do. I'm still married to my second wife I was married to when I wrote it. I knew I still had work to do, and it probably meant leaving that relationship. In fact, we split in 2002, right before the book came out. So I knew that was there. And then I got out in the dating world and really worked on me and applied all my principles I talk about in the book. And I was very successful at dating, met a lot of great women. And what I noticed is that, early in the relationships, I would lead, I'd set the tone, all those things I said I told the women. But kind of after I was in there for a while, I started noticing, all right, I'm not setting boundaries. I'm not leading. I'm putting up with things I shouldn't put up with. I'm walking on eggshells. My anxiety's kind of back. So I do know, for example, my anxiety states that somebody's going to be upset at me is wired really deeply into my nervous system. Maybe, again, maybe it's part of my genetic temperament. Um, and so I had this funny kind of interesting experience that this would be about 6 years ago. Um, the audio version of No More Mr. Nice Guy was read by somebody else. The original publisher said, we want this professional voice to read it. And so they didn't hire me to read it. And it had been out for several years, and it was only available in North America. So I told my agent, I said, can we cancel that contract? I want to read it, and I want it to have worldwide distribution. So they sent a mail off to the company that owned the contract, and they wrote back and said, "Okay, we're going to cancel the contract at the end of this calendar year." And then about 2 weeks later, I got an email from my agent, and he said, "We encourage you to consider accepting this offer." Okay, the same company that told me before we don't want you to read it said, "We want you to read it. No More Mr. Nice Guy and Dr. Glover are inseparable. We want you part of our evergreen catalog. We've only done this one other time, and we want to offer you a $75,000 advance and $5,000 to come to New York or wherever you want to record it." I thought, I just wanted to cancel the contract. They offered me $80,000. I go, that's not a bad, that didn't work out bad. So I flew back to New York, and I'm reading it. And I hadn't really read the book in a long, long time. I mean, it'd been out a long time. And I'm reading it. I'm getting tears in my eyes from stories I tell in there of men that I worked with 25, 30 years ago. A lot of the stories in there are my story. I just say, No More Mr. Nice Guy is autobiographical. I just use other guys to tell my story. But what I kept noticing while I'm reading it, and by then I was in marriage with my wife, Lupita, is I'm reading this going, oh, I've slipped back in that area. Or I've gone back to giving the dog a treat for pissing on the carpet, or I'm back in that deer response of defend, explain. So going back and reading it, for the audible version, made me realize I had slipped back into ways. And that got me motivated where I started looking, and I got into a men's program, which I've spent the last 6 years in, to go back to work on those patterns that had crept back in. So for me, and this is true for a lot of nice guys I see, where we're most likely to relapse, to slip back into old patterns is often in relationship. Especially once we get further in relationship, you got more invested, you fall into habits, patterns, it's harder to walk away from it. You don't want to walk away from it. Whatever it is, you start tolerating more, being more of the nice guy, keeping the peace, avoiding the conflict. So it is easy to slip in. And that's why I said real early on this call, don't do it alone. If you do it alone, you're gonna, like with addicts, you don't do addiction recovery alone. You go to 12-step, you go to treatment, you do whatever. You don't do it alone. And nice guy syndrome is every bit as strong as any addiction because it's down in our nervous system. So yes, you can slip back. And so I know what my patterns are, where I'm most likely to slip. And so I've got men in my life that know those patterns. Tomorrow, I got a call with 6 guys that I've been talking to every other week for the last 6 years. They know me. This weekend, I mentioned this writer's retreat. These guys have known me for years, and we get to mastermind a project. And I said, this year, guys, I'm all my projects are in process. You guys get to tell me what I need to be working on. Where are my blind spots? Where are my dark sides? Where am I not bringing everything to the table? Where am I, leaving something out? And so these 5 guys who know me well sharpened me, right? They sharpened me up. They had a lot of praise for me, but they said, Robert, here's where you're still weak. Here's where I think you could be stronger. Here's where I think you could still make a big difference in the world. So in order to not slip back, we need those good groups of men around us that get to know us well over time and who are happy to let us know if we're not bringing our A game, if we're not living up to our potential, if we're slipping back into mediocrity, into codependency, So we need those good men in our life to help keep us sharp.
Wow. So codependency also plays a huge part on this.
Nice guy syndrome really is codependency. When I wrote the book, I intentionally didn't use the word codependent because in that time, there were no books for men about codependency. All the books were either for partners of addicts or for women, and
Mhm.
women who love too much, codependent no more, things like that. They were mainly directed at women or partners of addicts. So I wanted to talk about men around this dynamic of codependency. Basically, another word for codependency is called borrowed functioning, where you have to have somebody else for you to feel like you exist, you count. So they need me, I'm needed, so therefore I count. I have value. They have to have problems that need fixing that I can fix for me to count and have value. And the other people need the codependent person because they do seem to struggle with their problems. So a codependent person is somebody who needs other people to have problems or to have drama or to have an addiction so that we're needed. We can go fix, we can help, we can rescue. But that distracts us from living our biggest life, from leveling up and being our best selves. And, whether that's making a lot of money, whether it's, launching our program, whether it's rising to the top of our company, whether it's being the best possible dad we could be, whatever, as soon as we get codependent, it levels us down. It saps our energy out of us because now it's all going over here to solve somebody else's problems, but we get value out of that. And because we get value out of it, we really can't afford for them to even get better. Because if they get better, we're out of a job. We're have to go find somebody else again and go get them to find someone else that needs fixing, or at least we perceive they need fixing, so we have a job. That is an addiction, right? It's treated like an addiction. So it's so easy to slip back into it, and that's why we need our support systems. Again, I got so many men in my life who know me so well. They love me dearly. They think I'm great. They think I'm amazing, but they don't hesitate to say, "Robert, I think you're back in an old pattern. Robert, I think you're doing it again."
Those are great connections to have. Great
Oh,
people.
you gotta have them. Gotta have them.
Brother. So last question, because I want to respect your time. I know we had an hour together. Now, my last question is just, it's crazy.
I love crazy questions. Bring it.
Yeah, so this is, and you could tell me if it's crazy or not. I found fucking crazy how couples who've been married for a lot of years could not have sex. That makes no freaking sense to me. You know, that's one. Two, sleep in different beds. I don't know if that's even a healthy thing or not, or just build that resentment towards their partner and not talk to them and live in the same house. I know a lot of people do that.
A few
And
people do that.
a few people do that. So, my question is, how the fuck is that even possible and still hold a family, kids, build a whole house together and do that? If you're not happy, wouldn't it make sense to just go separate ways? How does that work?
Well, that's a good question to end with. That would have been a good starting question. Again, for almost 40 years, I've worked with couples, with people, relationships, men, women. And again, I often say I've bumbled my way through every relationship I have. Every woman I've been with long term, I most of them began because I was codependent. Oh, I can help, I can fix, I can make their life better. And not a great way to start a relationship, but I guess maybe as good a way as any. Um, and then hopefully you outgrow that. There's a lot of moving parts in what you're asking. One of them, which is kind of surprising, is that from a purely evolutionary point of view, just how we as humans evolved over time, we're not long-term pair bonded monogamous relationships with the same sex is not in our human DNA. We're not built for that. For most of human existence, we were tribal, we were communal, everything was shared. The men and women lived in a tribe, but they didn't like go, hey, let's get a house together and try to live together. If you look around nowadays, men and women seem so at odds. The feminists are all talking about toxic masculinity. And I grew up hearing statements like every man's a rapist and erection's a sign of aggression. You look around, you look at a lot of young women, they're all like turning lesbian at 15. Guys are going their own way, gay, whatever. All of us, I think what's happening is we've been trying to force something to get men and women, all right, fall in love, go, and then, go move in with each other, get married, raise kids, live together the rest of your life, but we're not wired to do it. But we think we should be able to do it. There's the problem. You know, I don't know how many women you've had close relationships with or lived with or been married to, but I promise you, you get a man and woman in the same room and make them figure things out, they're going to be at odds with each other quickly because we just don't see the things the same. We don't process things the same. We don't want the same things. But here we say, okay, go get along with each other and live happily ever after, just like in the fairy tales. It doesn't work that way. Now, with that said, as somebody who, makes my living working with people around relationships, what I do say is that if people will show up consciously for their relationships, even though maybe that's not what's wired into our DNA to go out, falling in love's just a chemical. Oh, I feel so good when I'm around you. Oh, it feels so good to have sex with you. Those chemicals wear off after a while. And now all of a sudden, you can be a bitch. Well, you can be an ass. Well, you're getting fat. Well, you're getting lazy. All that stuff happens over time. And now we're supposed to still be in love with each other. But if we recognize that long-term relationships are inherently challenging and we're willing to show up consciously and say, okay, bring the challenge. Let's let it grow us. Relationships can be what I call powerful personal growth machines. They can grow us like nothing else. Now, a lot of times people don't get in a relationship to grow. Most people get into a relationship for some sense of security, emotional security, financial security, just I don't have to be alone, right? Not the best reasons to get into a long-term relationship. But if you say, all right, I'm getting into a long-term relationship because I value this person, I like their value systems, I know they're committed to personal growth, I love how they walk the planet, how they treat others, I want to be with that person, and still know you're both going to struggle. But how can we embrace the struggle? How can we get good resources? How can we welcome it? How can we learn from it? How can we get sharpened? How can we grow? And those kind of relationships can last, and they do stay interesting, and they do stay sexually vibrant. Now, when people quit growing, when they quit being honest with each other, when they quit telling each other the truth, when they start avoiding conflict, when they start having secrets from each other, when they just, invest their energy everywhere else but to each other, that's when they die. And it can be hard to walk away from, a shared mortgage, a shared history, shared families, children, debt. There's a lot of webs holding it together. So for most people, they get up every day and go, not today, not today. I'm not leaving today. I'd have to do this and, deal with that. Not today. And you can spend years. My pattern in a relationship is, at least if I look at my long-term relationships, I get in those relationships. I'm always the optimist. I see the best part in the women I'm with. I think the best parts about them will grow. The worst parts about them will shrink. Unfortunately, that's usually not what happens. The worst parts grow. The best parts shrink over time. And at some point in every one of my long-term relationships that I'm no longer in, at some point, the woman basically dug in her heels and said, don't expect anything more of. Don't expect me to grow, challenge, or work on myself. Just, I'm done. Now, you can always kind of tell when you've hit that point. You don't really know it consciously, but you know it unconsciously. I then usually stay several years longer after that point, trying to still drag them like an anchor behind me. But that's the point when you realize the other person is done growing. That is when you need to leave. That's when you need to say, I'm gone. Now, my wife and I, so we just had our 7th anniversary. We've had our issues. We struggle with certain stuff, but we can talk about them. We work on them. And I know my wife is committed to a lifelong personal growth. She knows I'm committed. So even when we're not doing our best, we both know the other person's not going to just start mailing it in. We'll go work on it. We'll challenge ourselves. So if you're with a partner who's willing to challenge themselves and grow and bring the best to the relationship, they're amazing. But once people go, no, I got my defenses up. I've been saying for a while, this is sad, but just say, even though we all want love, I think that's true, a human trait. We want love.
Right.
Unfortunately, I found that most of us will we'll choose our neuroses and defense mechanisms over love. Don't ask me to let down my defenses. Don't ask me to be vulnerable. Don't ask me to risk. Don't ask me to, work on bringing out. No, I don't ask me to do that. And we will reject love. We'll walk away from love because our neuroses and defense mechanisms are our oldest companions. And, we don't want to let them go. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but
Man,
I am a big believer in relationship, but I tell men and women both. I tell men, no woman will ever give you what your male mind thinks she will. And I tell women the same thing. No guy's ever going to give you what your female mind thinks he will. But if you get somebody that's got good values, they're honest, they're generous, they're kind, they're caring, and they're willing to challenge themselves and grow, you can have a hell of a lot together and have a hell of a good time.
it has to be 100% him, 100% her.
Bring it. No mailing it in. No, just that's all I want to work at it for today. No, you got to keep bringing it.
Right. Well, Dr. Rover, man, thank you so much for your time, man. I really do appreciate you. Now, is there any social media where I could collaborate with you? So if people are interested on buying your book, they could reach out to you, or I know because they could get it through Amazon.
I buy all mine on Amazon. So yeah, you get it on Amazon. Well, if people want to find me, two places to find me. Number one is at drglover.com, just drglover.com. The other is integrationnation.net. That's my membership program for men. I don't do a lot of social media. I'm not a big fan of it. I do get that, a lot of people do a lot of their marketing on social media. Because I'm not a fan, I don't. But that's just me.
Because I get most of my money through social media.
I know it can be done.
Instagram, and I use my social media just for business purpose only. I don't use it for anything else because there's no need for me to.
You're not scrolling, looking at amateur fashion models on Instagram.
No, I don't. It has to be making me money. If not, it doesn't make sense.
You're right. And I do have with the launch of Integration Nation, we have set up social media platforms for all of those, and we're just now getting those up and moving. So it does exist. But yeah, for now, let's just you and I chat. We'll figure things out moving forward.
For sure. Well, thank you so much again. God bless you and take care.
Gracias. I had a good time.
Same here. I look forward to meeting you, man.
We'll do it.
Actually, I'm gonna be in Merida. I have to do a podcast videos with with some realtors. We sell houses in Tulum, Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Nuevo Vallarta. We sell houses in Tijuana. So I gotta meet up with them, and I'm gonna do a podcast. So maybe if I'm around Puerto Vallarta, I'll contact you.
Stay in touch. Yeah, just stay in touch. Sure.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Corta edad es la que me detengue, pa' que no sepa quién soy de